Welcome to the exciting world of television production. At Rumbelows, we want you to get the very best from your new camcorder. So, to assist you, we have produced this video guide. Within the program, we're going to discuss the main operating features of your camcorder and, equally as important, the basic production techniques needed to make interesting and more professional-looking home videos. This tape is not intended to replace the supplied handbook, but to supplement it. So we strongly advise that you read this thoroughly before attempting to use your new camcorder. You'll be surprised to know how easy it is to start making movies. If you have chosen a VHS format camcorder, your model will use compact VHS-C cassettes. To play the compact C cassette in a normal VHS home video recorder is easy. Simply insert it into the adapter like so, and then insert the whole unit into your VCR. The 8mm format cassettes can be viewed by plugging your camcorder direct into your television set using the supplied lead. Whichever cassette your camcorder takes, your local Rumbelows branch will advise you on the blank tape recommended for your particular unit. Many Rumbelows branches also carry a range of accessories, including spare batteries. It's always advisable to carry 1 or 2 spare batteries, especially when on holiday or filming an important occasion. After all, you don't want to miss that all-important shot. Before your camcorder will operate, the supplied battery must be fully charged. So, at this point, we will hand you over to Leslie Judd, who will explain this and other operating procedures.
Your camcorder runs either on a 12-volt or a 9.6-volt power supply and will be powered mostly, for convenience sake, by the NiCad battery. NiCad batteries charge in about an hour, and the mains adapter charger has an indication lamp which lets you know when the charging is complete. Now, you should never top up a NiCad battery, as this only serves to shorten its life. Run the battery until it's flat and then charge it up completely. Your dealer will obviously be able to supply you with spare battery packs should you require longer recording times on holiday, for example. The battery simply clips onto the camera and forms part of the overall unit. Now, turn on the power, press the eject button and insert the cassette, and then gently push the cassette holder and cassette back into the camcorder. You are now powered up and ready to go. Or are you? Well, remember, it takes just as long in time to make a poor video as it does to make a good one. And making a good video program starts with the operator being able to use this camcorder to its best advantage. It is essential that you understand the reasons for the various settings and also when to take advantage of the manual overrides. A camcorder is basically a single unit that's made up of 4 separate components. These are the lens unit, which determines the focus, the focal length, and the amount of light entering the camera part of the unit. The camera body, which contains all the electronic circuitry that converts the light and information entering the lens into a colour video picture. The recording unit, which records the colour video picture onto the videotape and also allows playback to the monitor or a TV set. And the electronic viewfinder. Basically, it's a small television set which monitors the picture both during recording and playback. Because these 4 components make up a single unit, it follows that there must also be a number of controls on the camcorder. The operational controls fall mainly into 2 categories. Those that control the camera functions and those that control recording and playback functions. Let's examine each of these components in greater detail, starting with the lens unit. The zoom lens not only alters the focal length of your subject, but also ensures that correct focusing and light levels are achieved. There are occasions when you will need to override this feature. Here, for example, our subject is behind a mesh fence. The autofocus has locked onto the fence, leaving our subject out of focus. If we switch to manual focus using the focus button, we can adjust the focusing ring to bring our main subject into focus. The simple rule of manual focusing is to zoom in tight on your subject, adjust the focusing ring until you gain a sharp picture, and then pull out to the desired position. The subject will remain in focus, as long as it remains approximately the same distance away from the camcorder. Also built into the lens unit is the iris control. To maintain correct exposure, the iris will automatically open and close to let the desired amount of light enter through the lens. Under normal recording conditions, there's no problems. If, however, there is excessive lighting behind the subject, the iris will adjust itself to give correct exposure to the background. And this leaves the subject underexposed and in the dark. Now you can compensate for this by using the backlight button, which is located under or alongside the lens unit. Whilst the button is being pressed, the iris will open up one or two stops, and this will, in effect, overexpose the background, but in doing so, it will give your subject more exposure. Perhaps the most overused component on any camcorder is the zoom lens itself. The rocker switch on the top of the handle controls the power zoom. By pressing it back and forth, you can select any focal length from telephoto all the way to wide angle. On some models, the speed of the zoom depends on how far you depress the rocker control down, all the way down, and the time is 5 seconds from one end of the zoom range to the other, only halfway down, and the time will be 9 seconds. And models with a single speed zoom take 9 seconds. Well, we'll show you the correct use of the zoom lens later in the programme when we examine production techniques. By pressing the button, you can select a range of shutter speeds. This feature allows you to get really sharp, clear shots of fast-moving subjects, or when panning the camcorder. Whatever the filming conditions, you can eliminate blurring of your subject by selecting the appropriate shutter speed. The faster the action, the faster the shutter speed you use should be. Let's move on now to the camera body. And this in many ways is the heart of the unit, converting the light entering the lens into a video image by way of a charge-coupled device, more commonly known as a CCD chip. The electronics within the camera body are also responsible for adjusting what's known as the white balance. White balance is a term that often worries newcomers to video photography, and yet there's really no reason to be afraid of it. Let's briefly examine what the term means. To produce accurate colour pictures, a video camera divides visible light into 3 separate colours: red, green and blue. These 3 colours, known as the primary colours, are chosen because when mixed in the correct proportions, they make white. By varying the proportions of these primary colours, any other colour can be created. The video camera is designed to use white as its reference point, and providing it registers white correctly, then it will faithfully reproduce all the other colours. Now, if the visible light, that is the light that's all around us, was constant, then the video camera would always provide perfect colour reproduction. Unfortunately, though, it's not as simple as that, because visible light has what is known as a colour temperature. The light around us is made up from various coloured components. A relationship exists between the temperature of a light source and the coloured components of the light that it gives out. As the temperature rises, the colour of the light varies from red, orange, yellow, white to blue in that order. Although our own eyes don't detect these colour changes, the video camera does, so that when recording pictures indoors using ordinary filament light bulbs for illumination, the video camera would detect a reddish tint to the visible light. Out of doors, the sun is our light source. This has a much higher colour temperature than a light bulb, and as such gives a blue tint to the visible light. It's for this reason that a video camera has a white balance control. It compensates for these colour temperature variations of light, so that whites and colours are always faithfully reproduced. Occasionally, we may need to override the automatic setting. Now, this would normally be the case when recording in low light situations. To manually adjust the white balance is a simple procedure. By pressing the button marked white balance, we can select one of three settings, indicated by a symbol shown on the LCD display panel or in the viewfinder. Select this symbol when recording using halogen or tungsten lamps, this one for fluorescent lighting, and the sun symbol for out of doors. Moving round to the recording and playback functions, which are much the same as an ordinary home video. Once the camcorder is in the play and record mode, operating the unit is carried out from the trigger located at the back of the handle. Press once to commence recording and again to pause. This record or pause mode will be indicated within the viewfinder along with a host of other indicators. Again, see your instruction book for the exact specifications relating to your particular model. The viewfinder is your informational source, allowing you to view and set up the scenes you wish to record, as well as allowing you to play back and view previously recorded footage. And if you don't like what you've shot, simply rewind to a suitable spot on the tape, play to the end of the piece you want to keep, press pause, and then press record. Now you can start recording again from that point. It's as simple as that. Before we move on, let's just look at the care of the camcorder. Now, whilst it's a fairly robust piece of equipment, there are certain rules that you should follow to ensure that it doesn't get damaged at all. Now, obviously, camcorders don't bounce, so dropping it is not a good idea. When not in use, it's safer to store the unit in the supplied carrying case, and this will give the unit some protection from minor bumps and knocks. Never leave the unit on the rear parcel shelf of a car. Apart from the obvious invitation to thieves, the heat of the sun's rays could easily harm the mechanism with prolonged exposure. The lens should always be kept clean, and this is best achieved using a soft brush and special lens cleaning pads available from most photographic stores. Sand is probably the camcorder's worst enemy. It can scratch the lens and cause untold damage if it gets inside the head mechanism. So again, when not in use on the beach, always store the unit in its carrying case. One final point to watch is condensation. Now, this is usually a problem that occurs in the wintertime. Moving the unit from the cold into the warm conditions causes moisture to form on the video heads. This in turn makes the tape stick to the head drum and ruins the tape. And in severe cases, the video heads can also be ruined. The automatic protection circuit, known as the dew sensor, will generally protect the unit in humid conditions. But it is as well to be aware of this possible problem. There is a simple solution, and that is always allow a short time for the machine to reach room temperature before commencing the shoot. By following these few simple rules, your camcorder will give you years of excellent service. It's at this stage that most camcorder owners go off into the wild blue yonder, recording anything and everything that gets in the way of the lens. Having gathered masses of footage, the next step is to sit the family in front of the television set, start the tape playing, and wait for a reaction. Now, unfortunately, even the most loyal members of your family will lose interest in your new hobby when subjected to this sort of visual torture. To avoid this happening to you, we're now going to show you the basics of television production. Let's look at why we need special production techniques for television. Well, as we go about our normal daily business, we look around us, watching, interpreting what we see into useful information. And this is called free selection. However, if we use this free selection to produce our video programs, we'd invariably get poor results. That's because good production techniques rely more on guided viewing, that is, guiding your viewer's eyes to the relevant point that you wish to emphasize. So, why do we have to guide our viewers' eyes with our video camera when in normal daily life our viewers are quite capable of making these viewing decisions for themselves? The main reason for using guided viewing is that the limited size of the TV screen does not allow our viewer to see both detail and overall view simultaneously. When we use a wide-angle shot, we see more of the scene, but individual details are so small that they lose impact. On a tight shot, we gain the impact desired, but we lose the overall view. So, to achieve visual interest, we must vary between close, medium and wide shots. Careful selection of these shots will convey the maximum information to our viewer. Now we'll look at these shots in greater detail later. But before we continue, let's just reflect on how our own eyes and brain work together to give us information relevant to the scene that we're looking at. We don't need to see every action that's going on to give us the full story. In fact, when we look from one object to another, our eyes and brain automatically edit out the panning action in between the two objects. If they didn't, our whole life would consist of views like this. Our brains also allow us to deduce valuable information from limited sources. For example, here we see a close-up of a hand holding a pen and writing. Now we obviously know there's a person attached to that hand. We can tell if it's a male by the size and shape of the hand. We are automatically curious to know what our author looks like, and the next shot shows us. And although we see only his face, our brains have assumed that this face is the one belonging to the person doing the writing. A shot is what we call each individual picture we take. It's similar to a word. If we can put together a series of shots into a logical sequence, then we have a scene, just as when we put together a series of words in a logical sequence, we have a sentence. A good video photographer will use many different shots from different angles and at varying focal lengths to make an interesting scene. Let's consider the 4 standard shots. Each has its own name and purpose within a production. The long shot is very useful as an establishing shot because you can get the greatest amount of information in the frame at the one time. If the subject is a person, you would see the full person in the background. Try to consider the background when using the long shot because of the visual information it will carry. When using the long shot as an establishing shot, it's normally used at the start of the scene and will set the scene for the action to follow. Now, the medium shot has the effect of making the viewer want to get closer to the subject. A medium shot of a person is from the waist up and with more detail on the subject rather than the background. The close-up shot is probably the easiest and the most overused shot. It's a shot we use to highlight a certain point within a scene. On a person, the close-up covers the head and shoulders, and the background is less noticeable. When a close-up is not important, it's best to pull out to a medium shot so that when you use the next close-up, it has more visual impact. The 4th shot is the extreme close-up. I use this when close detail is required to strengthen a message. The frame will be totally dominated by the close-up shot, and when used on a person, it can convey a lot of information to the viewer about how the subject is feeling. Sadness, happiness, tension, etc. can all be conveyed in one simple shot. And don't be afraid to use this shot, but remember, it should only be used for specific purposes of highlighting. Well, these are just the basic 4 standard frames. And of course, many other shots lie between these 4. What about the camera movements? Well, there are several standard camera movements, and it's important to note that when you move the camera, you're really moving the audience's attention from one area to another. First, the pan. The pan is the easiest camera movement, but mustn't be overused. Panning is moving the camera horizontally from left to right or right to left. To pan correctly, there has to be a starting and finishing frame. Hold the opening frame, and then, when there is any movement or cutting point, start to pan. Try and make this movement slow and even. Hold the camera steady on your end frame, and then cut or pause. Remember, you're taking the audience from one place to another, so make the pan as even and smooth as possible. The tilt is the same as the pan, but instead of horizontal, it's a vertical camera movement. Hold the starting frame, just as if you were panning, move the camera up or down as evenly as possible, and then hold the end frame. The speed of the tilt should be slightly faster than the pan. Another form of camera movement is the use of the zoom lens. Now, the zoom lens was originally designed to enable the video photographer to get nearer to the subject visually without physically having to move closer. However, recording a zoom can make an interesting shot, especially to establish your subject within the surroundings. Never zoom in and then out again, or vice versa. It looks amateurish and adds nothing to the presentation. It's a common fault with most beginners to overuse the zoom. Zooming is a shot that calls a lot of attention to itself, and the audience will be very distracted by constant use of this movement. What about camera angles? Well, we normally shoot from shoulder height. However, altering the angle can dramatically alter the whole nature of the subject on screen. Shot from a low angle, our subject looks larger and far more impressive. The same subject, shot from a high angle, looks smaller and less significant. There are a few specific rules relating to the framing of a subject on screen that we must now look at. Imagine your television screen as a picture in a frame. Now, you'd want to see a picture that is pleasing to the eye. For television, we must film our subjects in a way that not only looks good on screen, but also conveys a message to our viewer. Here, our subject is admiring the view. It's an easy shot, and yet somehow the frame doesn't look quite right. That's because we haven't left what is known as a looking space. See the difference? By leaving a bigger gap in front of the subject, the viewer will eagerly wait to see what the subject finds so interesting. It doesn't matter what shot you put next, the viewer will think that that's what your subject is looking at. You must also leave a looking space when filming a subject talking or listening to another subject off screen. A similar rule applies when filming a moving subject. This time, the space is known as the leading space. It allows the viewer to see slightly in advance where the subject is walking to, which helps them to relate to the scene. The same rule applies to any other form of moving subject. Whether you're recording a wedding ceremony or thinking of directing a drama video, the ability to edit your footage after the event will enable you to create more coherent and interesting programs. This will hold your viewers' attention, as it will be you and not the event that determines the visual flow. So, what do we mean by visual flow? Well, the viewer makes sense of your video productions by comparing one shot with another as they come onto the screen. By showing a man waiting at a bus stop, looking at an approaching bus, followed by the man getting on the bus, then showing the destination plate, and cutting to the vehicle as it drives off, you are telling your viewer something about the action which is happening. You are telling a story. There is nothing more pleasing to the video photographer than giving the audience a production which really holds their attention. The audience should only be aware of the pictures on the TV screen and not the efforts that are going on at the other side of the camcorder to achieve those pictures. All live television programmes are made more interesting by switching to and from several cameras at various angles and focal lengths, whilst recorded television programmes, this one being no exception, are edited prior to being viewed. Editing a programme allows you greater flexibility in deciding what pictures should be used or disregarded. Editing also enables you to vary the length of time each shot is on the screen, and also the overall length of the production. The only way videotape can be edited is electronically. Never attempt to cut and splice a videotape, as you will certainly cause expensive damage to your video recorder or camcorder heads by trying to play a spliced tape. So, how do we edit our programmes electronically? Firstly, you need your camcorder, a second video cassette recorder, a television set, and the necessary sound and visual connections between them. Simply connect the video out of your camcorder and connect it to the video in of your video recorder, and finish with the RF out leading from the recorder to your television set. You are now ready to assemble edit. You may want to have black at the beginning of your edited tape to add a touch of professionalism. This is easily achieved by recording with a lens cap on. Insert your pre-recorded footage into the camcorder and find the first scene to be edited. Pause your camcorder at the beginning of this, then rewind the tape about 3 seconds. With your VCR, wind your tape on about 30 seconds from the beginning and put the machine into the pause record mode. Run the tape on the camcorder, and just before you reach the edit or in point, release the pause on your VCR. Continue recording until you are a few seconds past the end of the shot, then pause the VCR and stop the camcorder. Play back the VCR to check that the timing of your edit is accurate. If not, try again. If the edit is good, move on to the next scene and assemble your programme according to your plan. Well, we hope that you found this programme both useful and interesting, and we wish you every success in your new hobby. Bye-bye.